occasions. Okay, thanks, Jim. I don't know exactly how many occasions. It's been quite a few. They've taken us to a number of different locations all over the world, all with this very interesting presentations. And if you haven't had a chance to read their bio on the website or the newsletter, I'll just give you a very, very brief summary. I could go on for a long time, but you don't want to listen to me, you want to listen to them. So Diane has lived in remote villages in such diverse places as Dominica in the Windward Islands and Nunavut, and has done some very challenging treks, including one in Nepal. David is the one who sparked her interest in photography. He's been interested in photography since the age of 10, and a number of years ago won the Best Canadian Amateur Photo of the Year for underwater photography. He's also co-authored a book called Predator, Life and Death in the African Bush. Now, tonight, they're going to present on Cuba, the land of birds and animals, cigars and coffee. This country, which isn't all that big, has 28 endemic species of birds, many of which are included in this presentation, along with their calls. This is something new that David's been doing, is putting in the bird calls. And it's also home to the largest flamingo population in the Western Hemisphere, the Bee Hummingbird, the world's smallest bird, and the Cuban Trogon, which is a national bird. And the photo that was in the newsletter and on the website on the Cuban Tody is a really cute little bird. And apparently there are a few species of those toadies, family Totus. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane and David to take us on a little journey to Cuba. Thanks a lot, Diane and David. Welcome back again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having us. There's going to be two different shows tonight. The Birds and Animals of Cuba is 7 minutes long. And then we have one on the cars, cigars, and coffees, which is 24 minutes long. And there will be sounds on both shows. There will be text. If anyone is having trouble reading it, just say so, and I'll read it out loud. So we went there in May 2016 with Mark Ross, our guide from Africa. We actually flew from Miami to the east side of Cuba, not to Havana. We were picked up there by a driver and a guide. And then halfway through the trip, we got another different driver and a guide for the west side.
It's going ahead of you anyway.
Didn't get the sounds for them all, though. You little guy.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are about 8 inches to 12 inches across.
Mm.
It's the world's smallest bird. 5/100ths of an ounce. Doesn't sit still for very long. Poisonous frog, and that's a man's thumbnail on there.
Funny seeing them. I can remember exactly where we saw them.
That's his threatening posture.
Wow.
Spending.
Okay, while we ramp up the next one for a minute here, we found Cuba's people to be fantastic. Um, the they're very law-abiding. There was a noticeable absence of police and soldiers. And we're going to stop the second show a couple of different places. So we want to tell you some stories of what we saw. Now, their cars, everyone thinks they're fantastic. They look great, but they're all junk. They're not allowed to export them. That's not a great penalty because no one in North America wants them. They're not original cars. You may have a Cadillac body and a Ford motor and a Plymouth transmission and different brakes and everything like that, but they're quite ingenious. So and we call it 90 minutes flying to the 1950s. So okay. Everyone can read that, okay? Do you want me to read it?
I can read it.
Okay. And don't all rush off for a peanut enhancement because the surgery is free in Cuba.
Oh my.
Unreal.
So their cars, their cigars, and their coffee. And all the trucks and buses and motorcycles presented here were made in 1960 or earlier. It's just incredible to see these old cars. A lot of them are taxis. I got most of the names, but not all of them. That's Mark Ross with the knife in his belt there, helping him fix the car. So there's the screen. Instead of the built-in screen on the car, they put a tablet in there. They're definitely good looking.
What a sheds, huh?
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's a Ford Taunus. I've never heard of it.
Did you ride in any of them?
Yeah, you're going to see us in them in a minute.
Okay.
Cars are alluring only in photographs, practically glued together.
Wow.
There's a more reliable method of transportation right now. They're very proud of these. And they can make the parts to, it doesn't run or need to fix it. They can make the parts. Or you're going to see that in a few minutes. There's an old Pontiac symbol you haven't seen in a long time. Look at the eyes on the car headlights. I'm
Wow.
pretty sure none of these cars came out of the production line, these colors.
They're gorgeous.
They look great. Everybody's polite. There's no horn honking. Our 1919 Model T. That doesn't look like any Model T I've seen. They're very proud of these cars too.
Mm.
Well, we spent a lot of money on them.
Speak up, Dan.
Yeah.
Speak up. So on a Sunday, everyone who has a convertible, they all come and line up here. convertibles only.
Did you get all these in Havana or other places as well?
Other places. I'll point out a few. Cigars, tightly rolled bundle of dried and fermented tobacco. Cuba is to cigars what Bordeaux is to wine, equal parts tradition, terroir, and myth. So that's a drying barn for the tobacco. So it's hanging there. So this fellow is the owner of the.
After the Robert Lee.
Use a dry for the outside.
No, the outside is the most big one.
Okay.
And elastic. The first time you can be here, friend.
See.
¿Pasó?
El sendero fue dirigido a los animales.
Sí, friend. Yeah, verdad. The second one I made in my life, friend. That's it for you.
So what he said there was, this is the second cigar I've made in my life. Now, what we didn't record, they have to sell all their production to the government,
Whoa.
whether it's beef. So his comment was that he had to sell 90% to the government and keep 25% for himself. And it's the same with beef or sheep or anything like that.
The second ever.
But everyone's very friendly, cooperative. Everyone speaks English. So we drop into this home. They're making coffee for us. Strong coffee. Building a barn for drying tobacco leaves. Plus, taking workers. They spend a lot of money on the inside too.
Just the engine that doesn't get the money.
Right. Polish that one up quite a bit. Another bus. That's an American car made in Europe. They spent a lot of time in the paint jobs. They're quite elaborate. The colors. So this car, what we did was we took to going down side streets and looking in garages and stuff like that. And here, one place we stopped at and asked if we could see it. There's a 1938 Ford in original condition, hasn't been touched, sitting in their garage. And that's a Russian car. We couldn't tell what it was, 1960s. Coffee has been in Cuba grown since 1750. It's an insignificant trade now. Frequently roasted with brown sugar leaves a caramel aftertaste. Not sweet, but a caramel aftertaste. So this is roasting the coffee right from the beans, filtering it. That's what the beans look like. Raw beans, different colors. Those are the roasted ones, almost black. He's crushing grinding the coffee beans. That's what it looks like. This is what you call fresh coffee.
Mm.
We were drinking it everywhere. Canadian flag. It looked no muffler. 1937 Cuba bike. I never heard of it before. So there's one month away from being finished. It's down to the paint job now. Let's go all the different types of parts they use.
Mm.
And they make the parts. They can't buy them. Little taxi. The owners didn't even know what year their cars were.
Mm.
Did you find out if the cars have been in the family all the time, or do they sell them, or how do they acquire them?
They're all different. These are, so old that they've traded hands quite a few times. A lot of them. Some of them are still with the original families,
Wow.
but they've obviously been handed down to grandchildren now or great grandchildren. So this was a fleet of Ford convertibles. I guess they have their little clubs of convertibles or Chevs or Fords. Ford Anglia, another car I never heard of.
I have.
Me too.
Yeah,
You're older than me, though.
maybe, probably. The one was in Victoria. Yeah.
Mercedes.
We were told that you could, when we were there, that you could tell who owned the vehicle, like that the Army's plates were different from the government plates or whatever, they were different colors.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
Good question.
Definitely going to find out. So there's Mark Ross in one of the taxis.
Oh,
There we are there. Ford Thunderbird. We're almost on display in public places. There's enough iron in these cars to make two cars today because of all the plastics and everything they're using.
Why is everything black and white except the cars?
I'm sorry? Oh, I've done that to accentuate the color.
Oh, okay.
you're right about a lot of them having taxi signs in their windows.
1 second here. That's 3 million kilometers. Just 1 second here.
That's unbelievable.
Take it back for a second. So there's a Mercedes taxi, 3 million kilometers, 1.8 million miles on it. That's a car that doesn't exist. It's been made, handmade. There's a row of convertibles.
Are these cars pretty much an environmental disaster because they don't have decent mufflers and everything?
Yep. Well, you'll see when we get into the motorcycle shop, the sound you hear.
Oh. Kind of like Mexico.
Yeah.
Do they have a problem getting gas?
Not that I know of. I think it's pretty inexpensive too. Well, Cuba and Venezuela were closely connected, and Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. So I'm pretty sure while that friendship carried on, they got their gas pretty cheaply. Starting to look like I took a photograph of every car in Cuba. Now you'll notice that the blue car only had 3 wheels. This one's in a shop being rehabbed or remade, but that's what they get to start with.
God.
Now there's an Indian there, and the rest are Harleys. So this
Oh,
guy
wow.
remakes them, reconditions them, and sells them. That guy there. That's the start of him building a motorcycle. So Mark Ross, who is with us, is a motorcycle enthusiast. This one's hanging from the ceiling. It's not completed yet. So his business. That's the owner of the show.
It's not working better because the memory changed. Really bad. I'm ready.
That's a 1946 Harley Davidson.
Wow.
Yeah, it's, 45 degrees on the engine makes that sound. What caused it? The timing.
This one is 1946, 1200 flat.
We'll wait for you. You take it back. We'll wait for you. I want to hear you drive off. You wait.
You certainly did take a lot of pictures of cars, David.
That's why I had to break the slideshow down into 3 different shows. Otherwise, it was too long.
It's interesting, though, to see how they managed to keep those things going.
It's incredible. Just a couple of comments. We found the place extremely safe, and in a very absence of police or army. Anyway, we were traveling through the mountains one day, and there's 4 guys and Diane in the taxi, or our car, And there was a 12-year-old girl hitchhiking up in the mountains 5 miles to school. And here's four guys and a woman, stop the car, she jumps right in, no fear. And I said, "House, you touch her, there's no lawyers, there's no court, you're dead. You can go to the main park in Havana, sit down, put your camera beside you, go to sleep, no one will touch it." So it's very law-abiding that way. And Castro's influence, which was probably great to get rid of Batista, but it didn't help them after that very much. So, but an interesting country. The people were fantastic. The coffee's great. The cars are definitely unique. You can go crazy with them. And that's the completion of our 2 shows on Cuba.
Okay, well, thank you. I see Jack McDonald's got a comment on here that the cigar making that you showed is worlds apart from the cigar factory that they toured in Havana, which was a real sweatshop.
Yeah, this was out in the, we had a driver and a guide for the east side and the west side. And so we were out in the old places. And, the other thing about the farmers, if your cow wanders onto the street and gets hit by a car, it's the farmer's fault, not the driver. Your cow shouldn't be walking on the street. So it's interesting. And the laws, to my mind, a lot of them are very practical and make sense, safety for their people and young girls and everything. And but tough to make much of a living. And but the people were great, just
We have another third show that shows you the countryside, which is lovely, and the cemetery that's done for their heroes. They have a changing of the guard every hour, doing goose. What do you call that? Russian gooseneck,
German goose step.
Goose step, and very elaborate cemetery, where Castro would be and Che Guevara was. And there was an interesting day. We saw a young child sitting on a rock. Her parents had the job of clearing the road. A big rock had fallen onto the road. And their job of clearing the road was to smash the big rock into smaller rocks so they could move it off the road.
Oh my goodness.
This child is sitting on the rock quite a ways from them, watching this whole thing. We go up to her, we give her a package of cookies. And probably if we did that here in North America, she would have torn the cookie package apart and started eating it right away. But not her. She just thanked us very much, bowed her head, and put them beside her, and looked over at her parents. And her parents, meanwhile, hitting this rock with the sledgehammers. They didn't rush over either. But she was very calm and cool about it all. There was one road that was on a bridge, quite a ways high from above the ground. And it looked iffy from the ground to see it. But somebody beside us, the local, said that, oh, no, it's no problem. And so one of us said, well, if it's no problem, will you come across with us? And he said, sure. So he hopped in the car, drove across. It didn't fall apart as we went over. And then he got out at the end of the bridge and walked back home.
It was partially falling down as it was, never mind putting a car on it.
Right.
You have a question, Paul?
Yes, I do. When we were there many, many years ago, maybe Carol can say when, but at the time, the equivalent currency was the American dollar, ironically. That's no longer in fashion, eh?
Correct. There's two types of two currencies there now. And one is the tourist peso and the other one's the country peso. So, and there are different rates of exchange on them both. And of course, guess which one the tourists get. So when you change your American dollars or Canadian dollars or whatever it is, you'll get a tourist peso, which is slightly better. And of course, that's what the locals want.
Well, when we were there, the locals wanted the American dollars.
Right. Yeah. The
it
thing is,
it was accepted as a currency. You could go in any shop and they'd say so many pesos or so many dollars.
Yeah. Not anymore. You're not allowed to. They're not allowed to touch the American dollars. The government controls that now. Well, we
Enjoyed
appreciate
seeing all
being,
those old cars, by the way. It was great.
we appreciate being invited and look forward to our next trip.
Okay, I really enjoyed the bird sounds that went with the bird pictures.
Mhm.
That was great. Some of the sounds were what I expected. Some of them were not at all what I expected.
Well, they weren't necessarily, they weren't recorded there.
No,
No, I said they weren't recorded in Cuba.
no, I didn't think they probably were, no. But it was interesting just to have the two
Yeah,
together.
it makes it a little better than just a bunch of quiet
Beg your
birds.
pardon?
It's much better to have some sounds rather than quiet birds.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
well, thank you very much
you very much.
again, David and Diane.